Welcome to episode 31 of Yarn to Table. My name is Celeste, and this is a show about my knitting life. If this is your very first time watching, thank you so much for checking out the podcast. I hope you'll see something here that you like and that you'll hit the subscribe button right down there so that you can be notified of new episodes each week. We do have a Ravelry group, which is Yarn to Table podcast. You can find it by searching. There's also a link in the doobly-doo here on YouTube. And you're going to find show notes for every episode there, mentioning who designed patterns I'm talking about, what the yarn was, what the colorways were that you saw, pretty much everything that I talk about here on the show. You can also find me on Ravelry as well as Instagram as Celeste Foal. And on my Ravelry page, again, you're going to find really up-to-date notes about needle sizes that I used and what yarn is in the projects that you see and all of that. There's also a blogs tab for every project that has been talked about here on the podcast, and that will link you directly to any of the episodes where I talked about it if you're interested in checking out older episodes to see info on projects that you might want to hear about. If you're thinking about knitting them or that kind of thing, just want to see them in more detail. When we do run CALs, which are knit-alongs, or giveaways, those are also going to be in the Yarn to Table Ravelry group. And we did finish one recently, so we don't have any going on at the moment, but stay tuned for that. And if you are a maker of any kind and you're interested in donating a prize for a CAL or a giveaway, please get in touch with me. I would very much love to show off your awesome work here on the podcast and to give it away to one of my lovely viewers. So, I don't have any finished objects this week, so let's move straight on to whips, which are works in progress if you are new to the knitting lingo. So here in my Patchwork Gilmore Girls bag that I made, I have my Pop-Tarts and coffee socks, which I was able to work on again this week. If you are a new viewer, I work on these socks exclusively while I'm recording my audio podcast, Return to Stars Hollow, which is about Gilmore Girls. I've been doing this podcast almost every week with my co-host for the last 3 years. And this is a special treat that I give myself while I'm recording. So we had taken some time off and we've recorded again last week, and so I was able to knit on these, and I believe I had already done the heel flap and just like a couple rows the last time you saw them, and I did the gusset. So the gusset is now done and I've done a few rows past it. And that makes me really happy because gussets are my least favorite part of a sock. So now it's over. I can just zoom down toward the toe, possibly finish this up this week when we record again, or at least get close to it, and then I can be on to the second sock. So this incredibly beautiful yarn is from Molly of A Homespun House. She did a 1-month special Gilmore Girls Club, and that's what this came from. And then it was Yarn and Charm Club. The charm is a cup of coffee and a Pop-Tart. So amazing, right? So the pink is called the Pop-Tart Dilemma, and the brown is Coffee, Coffee, Coffee. I'll show them in the skein. So these were exclusive for this summer. She then opened up a 3-month Gilmore Girls Club. I'm not a member of it, but those are coming out now. And it's too late to sign up for that, but if you are interested, I'm sure you can get in touch with her and see if she's going to be doing it again in the future. I would imagine whether or not she does Gilmore Girls again in the future will probably depend on how much feedback she gets from people who missed out but would be interested. So if you are interested, make sure you let her know. But these are just an absolute joy. So I am knitting them on my Hiya Sharps. I absolutely hate these needles. I know a lot of people love them. They're too sharp for me, and the way that I knit my socks, I end up poking myself a little bit. The reason that I'm using them is because I only have one other sock needle that is the right size, and that's my ChiaoGoo, and I have other socks on it right now. So I really should just buy a second ChiaoGoo, but I just haven't gotten around to it. So I'm knitting these on the Hiyas. Anyway, they're fine. I do magic loop almost exclusively. I love it. I do it with a 32-inch cable. Hi, Augie. I do it on a 32-inch cable. I find that's the right length for me. Any longer is a little cumbersome. And I use 2.25 millimeter needles, which is a US size 1. And I always like metal needles. My needles of choice are ChiaoGoo. And for this sock, I'm doing complete ribbing all the way around the leg, and then on the foot I'm doing vanilla on bottom and ribbing on top. This is a 3x1 rib, and the way that I've done this with splitting for the top and bottom is just that I wanted there to be a really clean line of purl bumps on each side, and the way that works out for the math, I just ended up having to have one extra stitch on the top and one less stitch on the bottom, so that it would end with purl bumps on both sides and not end with a big rib that would go straight into stockinette and look funky. So that's been working well, and I did a classic heel turn, slip stitch heel turn, or heel flap and heel turn and gusset. You can see here the gusset, how the ribbing just sort of neatly slides into the visible decreases of the gusset. I think it looks nice and clean, and I like that. I find that when I pick up stitches for a heel flap, for some reason, they pick up really nice and clean on one side, and then on the other side, they stretch out the stitches a little. They just make them kind of bigger, and like, they just stretch them out, I guess is the only way I know how to say it. You can see that? Yeah. And I have not exactly been able to figure out why that is, because I'm essentially using the same hand for each part and like doing the same thing. I think next time I do one, I'm gonna look really closely and try to figure out what exactly it is that's happening. That way I can solve it. It's not a big problem. It's not very visible at all. But if I can figure it out and solve it, I would like to. So I don't knit heel flaps on all of my socks. And so my experience with heel flaps is a little lacking, so I could definitely spend some time trying to figure out what is causing that issue, and then I won't get it anymore. But I do Fish Lips Kiss heels a lot because they're fun and I like the way they fit. However, I do think there's something really nice when you're doing a contrasting heel. There's something really nice about a heel flap. It's a larger portion of the sock than, or at least it appears to be. I guess it just looks nice and square, and I just like the way it looks more than a contrasting Fish Lips Kiss heel, though I will also do a contrasting Fish Lips Kiss heel, especially if I'm doing self-striping socks, because I don't like self-striping with a gusset, because the gusset is a little wider than the rest of the sock, and so it will make the stripes ever so slightly shorter because it's taking more yarn to get around that portion. So I tend to do a Fish Lips Kiss if I'm doing self-striping, especially, although I definitely want to try Afterthought with that to get the bullseye, as I've talked about in the past. Here at the top, since I was doing ribbing all the way down, I thought it would be fun to just do a tiny bit of the contrast at the cuff. So that's my cast on row and 2 additional rows. And then I will be doing the contrast for my toe as well. So I think that's all I can say about these. I'm excited to be working on them again. They are a real joy. And because they are a special treat, I really do look forward to working on them while I record the podcast. Sorry, a little bit of street noise. I have the windows open because it's quite warm today. Unfortunately, it was really nice and cool all last week, but now it's a little warmer again. What was I saying? So my whole idea with the Pop-Tarts and coffee socks was that I wanted to give myself a little bit of a treat and a motivation, because recording the podcast is something we're in like our final year of it now, and it's a lot of work, especially with going to school and working full time. So I really wanted that to be something that I looked forward to, and that I was like in the mood for and excited to talk about this show that I loved each and every week. And adding this special knitting project that I can only do while I record has been really successful for that. I look forward to working on it when I get to work on it when we record, and I don't touch it other times. And so Augie. Sorry, when I record and Ryan's not home, Augie like demands my attention because nobody's playing with him every moment of the day. Honey, I'm recording right now. So as I was saying, I look forward more to recording Return to Stars Hollow, knowing that I'm going to be working on that sock, and I also have been enjoying the sock and the novelty of it because I work on it only at these certain times. So like, I think if I had, under other circumstances, been working on the same sock for weeks and weeks, I would probably be sick of it by now, but I'm not sick of it at all. So this is working out really well, and I think that I'm going to have to find some more Gilmore Girls yarn or dye myself some Gilmore Girls yarn, and possibly also make myself a little progress keeper, just so that I have something special to take the place of this once I do finish this project. I'd like to have something like this going until we finish Return to Stars Hollow next year, because it's just been such a joy. So as I said, Molly had her club going, but I didn't get in on that. So I think I'm just going to make myself something. I definitely have some ideas, so we'll see if I get around to that. I mentioned I had another sock that's on my ChowGoose, and I will show you that now. This is a brand new project that I've talked about it with anticipation. I have it in my gorgeous home row bag, which I'm completely obsessed with. I showed this off last week. It's such a perfect size. You could definitely do a 2-skein project in here really easily without cramping your project at all. And but if you do like a 1-skein project like a sock, it's also super easy to do this and just have it sitting there like a nice little sock bowl for your yarn, which is so lovely. This is a little wrinkled, like right here. This thing is a little wrinkled, you may have noticed, because I took it like this to the park on Friday, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We saw a movie in the park. And I just had it sitting next to me on our blanket while I knit, which was just so perfect. I didn't have to worry about my yarn, you know, rolling off into the grass and getting stained or dirty or anything like that. It just sat in here. And the colors of this bag, both the inside and this little green on the outside, perfectly match my candy apple yarn. So it's so cute. Okay, this is the most coordinated, adorable project. I mean, obviously I'm a sucker for those things. I have my Gilmore Girls bag with my Gilmore Girls yarn and my Gilmore Girls project keeper, right? Like, I'm clearly a total sucker for these coordinating projects. But this is real special. I know I mentioned to you guys, I was waiting to cast on these fall socks until I got my Sugar Tots Caramel Apple Progress Keeper. And that came. So I started. Look how gorgeous this yarn is. Honestly, I think it's breathtaking the way these speckles are knitting up. The absolute range from pale peach all the way into these dark rusty reds and oranges, and then the way that she incorporates these little pops of green throughout it, it is just stunning. It's been a long time since I have loved the way a yarn looked on a vanilla sock this much. I think the last time I was this taken was when I was doing the banana bread socks with my cat sandwich fiber, and I was like having to stop to admire it and it was slowing down my knitting. I feel like that's where I am again. Just absolutely breathtaking. So this is Nora George, and this was a sock set that she did with the contrast, and it's called Candy Apple. I picked it up last winter when she was doing an update that I caught, and I had wanted to do socks out of this set since I saw Katie of Inside Number 23 make some Mercury socks out of them. I decided I really wanted to do vanilla because while the Mercury socks were really beautiful, this yarn looked really lovely in that lacy, eyelet-y look. I really wanted something that felt like fall, and for me, lace and eyelets are a little bit more springy because they're not really as warm of socks. And I'm so glad that I chose vanilla because the yarn honestly looks so breathtaking in vanilla, which is to say plain stockinette, that like I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. So if you, as Katie would say, the beady-eyed among you may have noticed, that's what she always says and it cracks me up. You may have noticed there's something a little different going on here, which is that I've done some stranded work as a transition from the cuff into the leg of the sock. So see how the green continues on in these little columns. I'll show you the inside. There it is. That's my stranded, those are my floats. And it's just one row of each, so they're very tiny little floats. This was inspired by Pau of Pau Knits, I believe is his podcast. He is a knitter in Barcelona, and I saw some socks on Instagram of his that were so cool, and he had done a sort of stranded thing like this. I think he did it at the cuff. I know he did it going into the toe, and I can't remember if he had a two-color heel or not, but I'm going to do some kind of two-color heel. I honestly don't know what. I'm going to kind of figure it out when I get there. But yeah, I decided that would be a really fun thing to do on my next contrasting heels, cuffs and toes project. So I've done it here. I'm going to do, as I said, some kind of two-color heel, and then for the toe I'm going to do the same thing, some stranded work fading into the green toe. So yeah, I think it's going to be really, really cute. It definitely adds a little bit of interest to the knitting process, and I feel more confident adding some stranded to a sock now that after I checked my stranded gauge on my gauge swatch for the Ebba sweater, and I found that my stranded work is actually fitting the same gauge as my stockinette now, I was like feeling a lot more confident that I could add a little bit of stranded to this sock and not end up like making it so tight I couldn't get it over my heel or anything like that. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. Let's see, is there anything else to say about this? So this is the same situation, 2.25 or US 1 needles, 2.25 millimeter or US 1 needles. These are my ChiaoGoo, my absolute favorites. A lot of people I've heard say they don't like this red cable for Magic Loop because it is so, like, it's a little bit stiffer. I find I absolutely love it, and it's because it's stiffer, it's more predictable to know where it's going to be. It doesn't flop around a lot, and it also never kinks. So I think it's just a matter of what you're used to maybe, but I really love it. Again, 32-inch for Magic Loop, and I don't remember if I mentioned before, but I do a 56 stitch count around for my vanilla socks. So yeah, very excited about these. I started these this week. Obviously you hadn't seen them before. I got the Progress Keeper sometime in the middle of the week and cast on, and then I was able to work on them a little bit during a game night that we had at our house, and although I also worked on my Marled Magic a bit, I'll talk about that. That was a mistake. But yeah, that's my vanilla sock is my perfect travel knitting, social knitting project, as I always say. So I got some work on that on game night, although not that much because I was also trying to do something with the Marled Magic. And then I got a lot of stitching on it when we saw the movie in the park, although I did stop knitting when the movie came on, actually, because I was so tired that I didn't want to knit anymore. I just wanted to lie there and watch the movie, which is really rare for me, but I was really tired. So yeah, I definitely could have knit more on that sock this week, and yet I feel like I've made really good progress for it just being my sort of like vanilla sock that I don't do the majority of my knitting on. So I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but I'm excited about it. So let me show you my other projects. I mentioned doing the Eba swatch, and of course you saw I had just done my tubular cast on for the Eba last week, and I've now knit a little bit on it, so I'll just show you my progress briefly. There it is. So this is the rib at the bottom of the sweater. Here's my tubular cast on, and then I've just got past the rib and done a few rows of stockinette. And I was taking this as my sort of on the go in the car project, just because I don't like to leave the house without any knitting at all. So like I would knit a little bit. Honestly, this is embarrassing, but sometimes I knit a little bit when I'm at like a red light in traffic on the way home, where you're like at a red light and then you pull forward when it turns green, but you still don't get through it and it's red again. Or I'll knit like in the Starbucks drive-thru, where again it's like super congested and you're sitting there for like 10-15 minutes. So I'll get like a couple rows here and there, but I didn't get much in on it because then I did start the candy apple socks, and those became my on-the-go project. So I will need to sit down and do some more knitting on this sometime soon, but it is still also a very good like social knitting project because it doesn't take a lot of thought. So I'm just knitting this with Wool of the Andes Sport Weight Non-Superwash from Knit Picks, and that was very affordable. I got all of my yarn for less than $20. I'm going to be doing the color work in the white and the neckline and cuffs in the red. And if you haven't seen it before, this is what the Eba is going to look like. So it's very pretty. This is a design by Diana Walla, and she did it for Quince & Co. And I am pretty excited about it. Also, this is my Tilting Planet Progress Keeper, the nice little puff ball. I think it's so cute, and it's so lightweight, so it would be really, really great as a progress keeper on like a delicate lace shawl or something like that as well. So anyway, a little bit of progress on the Eba. I definitely need to spend some more time with it because it's been a while since I finished a garment, and I'm itching to have one. Finally, my Marled Magic. It's living in my giant blanket size bag that I made for myself out of the Gasly's print, just because there's so many yarns that you carry around for it. Not that you necessarily use up all of them, but it's a lot of yarn to carry around. So I got a little obsessed with this. Here's what happened. When you last saw it, I had started section 3, which was brioche, but it looked a lot different than this. In the pattern, it's one color brioche. Now, not to confuse you, but one color still means 2 colors of yarn held together because the entire project is marled. So everywhere you're using 2 fingering weight yarns held together. So I had done this with a yellow. I'd done it with, nope, come here. Gosh, I really didn't think it would be that hard to find, or I would not have looked. It's like Mary Poppins bag in here. Okay, here we go. This is Nora George, Fred and George. I had just knit some socks out of it. I was holding it with Kid Silk Haze in Grace, which is a pale pink. That's actually a lace weight. I could never tell on this if you were supposed to incorporate the lace weight mohair in lieu of another fingering or in addition to a second fingering. So I did different things, and I'll talk about that. But anyway, I knit the whole thing in 1 color brioche, holding these 2 together. And then I saw a project. I will put a picture here along with the name of the username on Ravelry of the person who knit it. It was so beautiful, her version of the Marled Magic, and she altered it to do 2 color brioche. And it was so great. I loved the way it looked. Obviously, I've knit a lot of 2 color brioche before. I'd actually never knit 1 color brioche, which I think was maybe part of the reason why I didn't think to alter it, is I'd never done 1 color brioche, so I kind of wanted to just try it, you know, just to kind of see what it felt like. So anyway, I saw her project and I thought, damn it, I have to knit this in 2 color brioche. That's what I want. I love the way it looks with all the other sections. That's what I want in my Marled Magic. So I ripped out the entire section, which is why these 2 held together are now in a ball. This is everything I ripped out. And then I redid it in 2 color brioche. And I was so happy I did. I was so happy. I love the way it looks. So before I did that, I consulted Caitlin, who you may know from the Wool Jeweled podcast. She is the frog queen, and she inspires me to frog sections, whole projects, whatever you need to do to get it right, to get it the way that you want it to be. Because too often, I don't want to frog things and then I end up with projects that I don't like. They have problems that I wish were different. So I was messaging with her on Instagram and I was like, here's what I've knit and here are the colors I'm thinking about doing it in 2 color brioche, and I think I really, really want to, and like, should I rip back? Basically, I needed someone to tell me, yeah, you should follow your heart. And even though Caitlin loves yellow, she took one for the team and she let me rip out all of the yellow and redo it as 2 color brioche. So thank you, Caitlin, for your support and advice and just being such an inspiration in general. So I ripped it out and I knit it as 2 color brioche. So for this 2 color brioche section, here's the other side. Show you them together. So for the main color, I used this Nora George Anything Off the Trolley Dears, held with my pale pink, you've seen it before, I'm not going to try to dig it out, my pale pink mohair, Rowan Kid Silk Haze. And then on the reverse side, oh here, I'll just show you, I'll show you these. So that was my main color. And then on the reverse side, I had this, which is a nice mauve semi-solid. It's Hermione from Little Bean Loves, and I held it with my Mystery Mohair in my sort of lavender mauve-ish color, and that's my contrast. So I had mohair on both. The Mystery Mohair is more of a fingering weight, and the Rowan Kid Silk Haze is a lace weight. So I ended up with my main color being a bit thinner than my contrasting color, which is something I really love in brioche. That's how I knit my Marley shawl, was with a fingering and a DK. So I liked that a lot. And if you are knitting the Marled Magic and you want to alter it for 2-color brioche, let me give you a couple tips in terms of how I did it. Just because it is a little bit more complicated than you might think. When you're knitting 1-color brioche, you're knitting every side, but when you do 2-color brioche, you have to purl. So if you've never done 2-color brioche, I don't recommend you try to alter this for 2-color, and I really can't talk you through all the basics of how to do 2-color brioche. But if you do know how to do 2-color brioche, here are the things that tripped me up when altering this pattern. For all of the decreases, what I did was I decreased on every main color right side row, which is every 4th brioche row and every 2nd apparent row. Okay? So every time you're using your main color and you're on the right side, so you're knitting with your main color, not purling with it, you're going to be decreasing. That ends up decreasing at the same rate as in the pattern. The other thing is, for these slip stitch edges, the way you did that in the pattern was, I think that you knit the first stitch and slipped the last stitch with the yarn in front on every single row. That's not going to work for 2-color brioche. This was the trickiest thing, and what I ended up figuring out, I'm not going to talk you through all the mechanics of it because it's boring to most people, and also it would be easier to actually show you and have it be some kind of tutorial, and I'm not going to film all of that. But what you need to know if you're going to do this is, when you're knitting with your main color, which for me is this speckled, this Nora George, when you're knitting with your main color, you're going to slip the first and the last stitches. Those should continue to be in this lavender, this contrast color, the entire time. And on every contrast color row, you're going to knit the first one and you're going to slip the last one. Now, whether or not you slip it with yarn in front or yarn in back is going to depend on whether the next time you knit with that color you're going to be knitting or purling. But you can kind of figure that out as you go, and if you slip it in the wrong place, front or back, once you get to it the next time, you can kind of move it around where you need it to be. All of that should be apparent when you're doing this. Now, if you want to do this, if you want to alter it, I know there's a knit along going on right now, the Jinx Bull and Vine 2017 Cal for this Marled Magic. So a lot of people are knitting it. If you would like to alter it to be 2-color brioche like I did, I would be happy to answer any questions that you have about that, kind of help you troubleshoot it. But like I said, if you're not already familiar with 2-color brioche flat, which again, 2-color in the round is a separate thing, it's easier, you don't have to purl. 2-color brioche flat, if you're not already familiar with 2-color brioche flat, I wouldn't recommend doing this, and I really can't like talk you through all of the mechanics of how that's going to work. It's just too complicated. But if you are already familiar with it and you're getting stuck or you're having trouble figuring out where you should decrease or how you should do the edges, hit me up on Ravelry or in the comments here. If you send me a message on Instagram, I probably won't see it unless I already follow you. But you can leave me a comment on Instagram, anything like that. And also on the forum for the Cal on Kristen's group on Ravelry, which is Yarngasm. I've already talked someone through how I did it a little bit who was asking, which is why I thought it might be helpful to tell you guys on the podcast. So you could also ask me your questions there, and then everyone can read the answer, and maybe it can help other people that are trying to do it as well. So that's honestly probably the best place to go. But yeah, I think it looks amazing, so I'm really glad I did that. A little bit during our game night, I actually ripped it out as people were arriving, and I wanted to cast it on immediately because I was so excited. So I started trying to do that while we were playing board games, and so I knit the beginning and ripped it out, knit the beginning, ripped it out, knit frog, like about 5 times. Because obviously, like, I had to figure out all the things I just explained, how to treat the slip stitches at the edges and how to decrease, because it was all different. So that was really a mistake. But it was fine. I mean, eventually I kind of like stopped and I moved on to the sock, which is what I should have been doing the whole time. But I don't regret it because I was really excited to start knitting it to color and to figure it out. And I made enough mistakes in all of that knitting and frogging while I was so enthusiastic that I was able to learn from those mistakes. And then the next morning I kind of woke up lying in bed thinking about how I should be doing it differently on the edges and like figuring it out. And so I feel like making all those mistakes was necessary to figuring out how to do it. And if I had been making those mistakes under different circumstances, I might have gotten tired out. But because I was making those mistakes while I was still really excited to get going on it, I was able to power through them and not be too frustrated. So it worked out really well. I was then so excited. So I knit a big portion of this, and then yesterday, which was Saturday, I finished this section, and I was so into this shawl that I went ahead and I knit the next 2 sections. I literally knit like all day. As I said, I have been so incredibly tired that even though there are other things that I need to get done around the house, like moving things in and out of the attic and stuff like that, every time I would try to do those things, I would just get too exhausted. Because I've had quite a week at work. Being a full-time student and working full-time, I'm starting to figure out why a lot of people don't do that. It's a lot. So I really just at a certain point said, forget it. I'm just gonna let myself sit here and knit for the rest of this damn day because I am tired and excited about this project. So I knit the next 2 sections. So this is section 4. This is a garter stitch section, and I knitted, I didn't think I was going to use this black mohair, but I had it left over from my Wicked Spell hat. This is also Rowan Kid Silkhaze. It's in the colorway Wicked. And I thought it might be nice to add something dark. So I started with the blue, which is a semi-solid. This is a Homespun House Broad in Your Minds, and it's actually the contrasting mini, 20-gram mini for a sock set that she did with You're Going to Suffer, but You're Going to Feel Happy About It as the main. So that's a Trelawney, Professor Trelawney reference. So I decided that I didn't actually want to use that mini when I make it into Trelawney socks because I want them to be Christmas socks, and while the blue would have worked, I think they'll be even more Christmassy if I leave it out. So I decided I wanted to use it in this shawl, and what I actually did before I did section 4 and section 5, which is here, wait, no, yeah, section 5. Those 2 are the smaller sections, the smallest sections of the whole thing. And he tells you roughly like your yardage that you're going to need for each of them so that you can sort of use smaller scraps if you want. So what I did was I weighed everything that I wanted to use, and then using Ravelry's tool in your stash, I let it know how much I had left in grams, and it converted it to yards because it has all that information on the specific yarns that I was using. And I figured out what I could and couldn't use. so that I could go into it with some confidence, which I like because I'm a planner. So I decided I wanted to use this mini, and I thought maybe I could use it for one of these smaller sections. And I would have had enough of it to use it by itself for section 5, which is this arrow section, but I really wanted to use it for section 4 instead. Held with the leftovers of Wicked, which I also weighed to make sure I had enough, and I did just barely. I did not have quite enough of the blue, the Broaden Your Minds, so I decided to stripe in some of this Amortentia, which is the purple that is from Little Bean Loves, and I actually think it looks so much better because if I had just done the Broaden Your Minds with the Wicked, because those are 2 yarns that I didn't use anywhere else in the project, I think it might have been too contrasting, almost looking like it didn't belong. Whereas when I added the Amortentia, which I've used in some other places, and has more of the color story that's going on other places, I feel that it helps pull this section into the rest of the shawl. So I thought that worked out really well. And both of these small sections, Stephen West recommended that you use, you know, a pop of color or a contrast, use something dark if other things have been light, that kind of thing. And I tried to take that advice within reason because I didn't want the whole thing to feel like very disjointed. I still wanted it to work together. And then I knit this section 5, which is this big arrow, and this is the smallest section in terms of the amount of yarn you use. Done in garter stitch with these eyelets down the middle. And what I have, this edge still on the needles, is where my section 6, which is my last section, is going to come from. And this, which I've held on a cable by itself, I also have this held on a cable right now, is going to be the edge. And those are live stitches just because it's going to make the I-cord bind off that's going to go around the whole thing be a little bit easier than picking up stitches. So that's why those are on there. And for this section, I used a Homespun House Pygmy Puff. I won't show it to you in this skein. I think I just have a tiny ball left anyway. This is a Harry Potter yarn that was not part of Molly's Club. She just had it in the shop. I knit some socks out of it last winter, and here I've held it with Grace, the pale pink Rowan Kid Silk Haze, and I actually held it with Grace doubled because I wanted to give it a little bit more heft, a little bit, have it be a little bit denser. And I also liked the idea of just going pretty overboard with like how fuzzy it was going to be, since it's this tiny little contrast section. So what I've done with my my use of mohair is that I used it in these 2 small sections and in this point of the shawl, but not in the large seed stitch or the eyelet. And then the last section I'm going to have, sorry, I just pulled my needle out. The last section I'm going to have is going to be another seed stitch section, and that will also not have any mohair until I get to the very tip, and then I'm going to incorporate some mohair again, so that all the mohair will be in these smaller spaces on the 2 tips of the shawl, and then in these 2 small sections. And I think that's going to look really good in terms of the contrast with the texture. So that's where I am. I have the seed stitch section to go. It's going to be probably a little larger than this section 2, the seed stitch fade here. It's probably going to be about as big as this fade and this brioche combined, I would guess. And then I will have the I-cord and I will be done. There are 2 more optional sections that essentially come off from the point, and they go down here and then another on this side. I don't think they add a lot design-wise because they're not like full of some fun new texture the way like the eyelet or the brioche is. And they're really just there for people who want it to be even bigger and more of like a schlanket. And I think it's already going to be very large. I honestly think the look of it is better without those two sections. So even though I'm loving it and I think I would enjoy picking more yarn and doing 2 additional sections, I think I'm actually going to like the project more if I quit after section 6 and just do the I quit bind off. So the way he does it in the pattern is he talks about it as a medium and a large size. And he says you don't have to decide until later what you want, you know. So I'm going to be doing the medium size. Yeah. So that's what's going on with my Marled Magic. I'm very into it right now. This was a scary project for me. I'm not big on using a ton of colors. I'm not big on scrappy projects. I'm not big on improvisational knitting, and you know, I like to plan things. I like to know what they're gonna look like. So this is very outside of my comfort zone, and I'm really happy I've been doing it. I think Stephen West designs like a process knitter. I think he designs from the point of view of what would I like to knit, what would be fun. And in my experience, and I've only knit 2 of his designs so far, but the way other people talk about him, it seems to be their experience as well. His stuff is fun. It's like addictive, and I think it's very processy. And that's a lot of the way that I knit and that I want to knit, although it definitely depends on the project. I have projects that are more about the product for sure. But with this project, I think I'm still not certain how exactly I'm going to feel about the finished product. I don't know how much wear I'll get out of it, how I'll wear it, what it'll, you know, go with in my wardrobe, any of that. And it's possible that I'll love it and wear it all the time. It's possible that I'll never wear it and I'll want to give it to someone. It's possible that I'll want to use it more as like a lap blanket. Who knows? But I'm not getting bogged down in that. I'm not worried about it. I am focused on this experience of knitting it. And it's been really, really fun. And it's really exciting to see, you know, knit-alongs are so great when you're doing the same project because seeing so many different versions of the same pattern and everyone doing them at once and like talking about them is just a lot of fun. I think maybe for a knit-along on this channel in the future, I would like to do something where we all choose the same pattern, because we haven't done that yet. I've wanted them to be more open-ended because this is a smaller channel and I know there aren't that many people participating, so I find more people can participate the more open-ended it is. But I do think it might be really fun sometime to have us all knit the same pattern. So maybe I'll find something that feels like it would have a lot of appeal, something like a shawl rather than a garment, you know, so people, no matter what their body type is or their skill level, you know, maybe something that might appeal to a lot of people. And maybe we could all knit the same pattern together. I think that would be fun because it's definitely been a joy to do that with the Marled Magic. And maybe I'll partner with somebody else to co-host it because that opens up the possibilities a little bit as well. So yeah. That is all of my WIPs. I talked in depth about my On the Horizon plans last week, so nothing's really changed. I guess all I would say is that I do want to swatch for the pavement sweater sometime here soon. And I'd also really like to get back into knitting on my Void, which is a shawl by Melanie Berg that I've been knitting in Malabrigo. It's lovely. It is a fall project. I want to wear it in the fall. So I'm about halfway done with it, and I would like to finish it before it's really feeling like we're into winter. Like, I'd really like to finish it by the end of this month. I don't think that's probably going to happen because I have other projects. It depends on whether I completely fall head over heels in love with it again and become a monogamous knitter. Sorry, there's a plane going over. I'm sorry. I normally don't record with my windows open, but today I really needed the breeze. What was I saying? Okay, if I become completely monogamous with it, then I probably will finish it by the end of the month. But I definitely need to make it a priority because I would like to wear it sometime soon, because I chose the color based on something I'd want to wear in fall. And I like knitting it in fall. It feels like fall, and it's honestly a very, very enjoyable project. It's not that I've lost interest in it at all. I've just been excited about other things, and so I've been knitting on them. So I think I might be at a place where I've run my Marled Magic energy so much that, you know, on the one hand, I kind of want to just full steam ahead and finish it. Another part of me feels like I might want to pull back and dedicate time to the Void. And I really should choose one or the other and then just do it. If I were to go full steam ahead and just get the Marled Magic off my needles entirely this week, I do feel like finishing a project like that would feel good, and then that would lighten me up. I wouldn't feel so bad about casting on the pavement, and I would feel like I could put a bunch of my energy into the Void. So maybe I should just do that. Do you feel like, regardless of how much knitting you get done in a week, when you actually finish a project, it feels like you've done more, right? So because I'm so far along in the Marled Magic, and I could finish it so quickly because with the marling, I'm using a larger needle, and like, I don't have that much to go. Indecisive. I think I'm going to start knitting on the Void today and see if it captures my heart and makes me want to dedicate all of my time to it, and just see how that goes. And then once I've been away from the Marled Magic and long enough, I will be so itching to work on it again and finish it that I can do that. Sorry, Augie, I shut him out because he was making it impossible to record, and now he's meowing his head off, so I'm gonna go as soon as I finish. She'll be in a few minutes. Okay, I'm gonna go let him in just so that he chills. Honey, I'm almost done. Okay, so I don't have anything for stash enhancement. I know I did mention the Maker's Haven patchwork Halloween bags, and how I wanted one, and I put her update in my calendar, but then her sewing machine broke down, so she wasn't able to put them in that update, and I'm actually not sure if she's going to make them at all now, or if it's delayed her so much that she's sort of like missed the season and you know, maybe won't get them done. So that's disappointing, but I'm not getting that, and I don't have any plans to buy anything else anytime soon. I do still have club colors coming from Molly with the Harry Potter club, which I'm in. So yeah, so I have another one of those coming soon. That's already paid for, but I don't have anything else that I'm wanting and needing, which is good because you shouldn't buy yarn faster than you can knit it. At least I shouldn't, because it overwhelms me. I prefer to buy yarn with projects in mind, unless it's something really special like the Harry Potter Club, which just makes me happy. I think everything you buy should make you happy and not stress you out. Hi, sweetie. So, for chit chat, I just want to tell you a little bit about what I've been up to lately. As I mentioned, we saw a movie in the park Friday night. That was lovely. It was the movie Clue, which is a completely weird and hilarious movie. If you haven't seen it before, it's actually based on the board game Clue. I think they made it in the 80s. It's got Tim Curry and Christopher Lloyd, and it's like very strange and funny. It's not too scary. There were a lot of kids there with their parents. Scoot. So it was like kind of nice and Halloween-y a little bit, you know. It's just sort of based on that kind of silly classic murder mystery in a mansion sort of concept. And Augie, he's gonna knock this over. Augie, you gotta sit in my lap if we're gonna do this. I can't have you knocking down the camera, okay? So that was really fun. We actually we found out about it because there's this local band that my friend used to play in, and then my husband is still casual, like Facebook friends with the lead singer, so he found out they were playing before the movie. So we hadn't seen them play in a while, so that was fun. We saw them play. We got some wood fire pizza that they were making. This sort of food truck isn't exactly the right word because it's more like a brick oven trailer, but and then we watched the movie, and it was just under the stars, absolutely perfect, beautiful weather, like absolutely perfect September evening. It wasn't muggy or hot at all, but it wasn't too cold. And that was just really, really nice. As I mentioned, things have been really crazy for me lately. Work has been hard. We are now down 3 people on my team. And so we're all overworked, and at the same time I have school going on, and it's getting pretty intense. So I feel like I'm falling behind in all aspects of my life. I feel like I'm not doing enough at work, I'm not doing enough at school, and I'm not doing enough at home, which is kind of a crappy way to feel, to be honest. My cat hair going everywhere. So I'm trying to deal with that, trying to deal with my own expectations for myself and my kind of perfectionism, and try to like set more reasonable expectations for myself. But I'm also doing a lot of thinking about plans for next year, because there is every year a study abroad option offered. It's a 2-week study abroad in Wales, and it counts as one of your interdisciplinary studies courses that you take. So if I were to do it, it would lighten the load for the semester leading up to it, and then I would be out of town for those 2 weeks. And like having an incredible experience in Wales. It would be over the course of my 30th birthday, which would be weird to not be home, but it would also be kind of special to be in Wales. And the real thing is, this is my only chance this year to do that study abroad. I couldn't do it this past year because I actually started the course in June, which was just after the Wales trip. And I can't do it in 2019 because that will be my final semester. So instead of having an interdisciplinary studies course, I'm going to be working on my thesis. So this year is the only year I would be able to do it. And the thing is, because it's 2 weeks, I would have to use 2 weeks of my vacation. I get 4 weeks total. So I use 1 for my January residency and 1 for my June residency. So if I used those 2 weeks in Wales, I would be using every scrap of my time off from work for my MFA program, which would mean that I couldn't take a personal day if anything happened. I couldn't go on vacation or staycation, or just my only time off for that entire year would be weekends and holidays, and literally nothing else. And the idea of doing that is pretty scary the idea of doing that while working at the pace that I'm working at now is horrifying. And so I really feel like I'm in this catch-22 situation where I don't know if, like, I don't want to regret not going to Wales and taking this amazing opportunity, but I also don't want to choose to go to Wales and regret it because I feel overworked and exhausted for an entire year. That's a really long time. I don't want to jeopardize my career by thinking about options for working more part-time. Also, that would be financially very difficult, and I would also lose my benefits, and so I would have to get on like my husband's health care and stuff, and just the idea of that is not, it just doesn't even feel like an option. So things are tricky, and I feel like all possible choices feel bad. And I don't have to make this decision until December. But it's weighing on me a little bit right now. So just my general ability to keep up and to give everything that I have to all the different things that I'm doing is really hard. And I'm feeling it right now. So I guess to sort of end this on a bit more of a positive note, what I would love is if you guys would tell me what your experience is with juggling a lot of things at once. You know, I know, especially for parents, and I'm not a parent yet, that can kind of just come with the territory of life. And, you know, forget 1 year, like for several years, you can just be completely spending every moment of your life, you know, taking care of a baby or working or whatever. So I'd like to know from you guys what you've learned from that experience, what you would do differently in terms of like taking on too much, and how you deal with, you know, feeling like you're not meeting your expectations for yourself, how you deal just practically with managing your time when you're doing a lot of different things. And yeah, just like your advice for me and your own experiences, I would love to hear. It would honestly just feel nice to, you know, remind myself that I'm not alone in this, and that it's a very common part of being a person is being pulled in a bunch of different directions and feeling like you want to give 100% to everything, but you can't. So yeah, let me know. I would love to hear that. And I will let you guys go until next week. Hope you have a wonderful week. Hope your knitting is enjoyable and your lives are enjoyable. And thank you so much for watching. As I said, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And if you enjoyed this and you would hit the thumbs up button, that definitely helps other people find me. Also, just spreading the word generally. If you know anyone else who watches knitting podcasts, and you think they'd enjoy mine, let them know. I appreciate you guys so much, and I hope you have a great week. See you next time.